If you owned a phone in the early 2000s, there's a good chance it was this. Because back then, Nokia didn't just compete in the mobile phone market, they were the market. At their peak, Nokia was worth $250 billion. They controlled more than half of the global phone market. And in their home country of Finland, they were a national treasure. But then, in just 6 short years, they lost everything. Their stock collapsed. They fired 18,000 employees. They even sold their entire phone business to Microsoft for $7.2 billion. And it all started with one email, a leaked memo from a brand new CEO that destroyed the entire company within hours. The man who sent that email walked away with $25 million in his pocket and almost immediately went back to working at Microsoft. To this day, many people believe Microsoft sent him on purpose to destroy Nokia from the inside. But here's the part of the story almost nobody talks about. Because every single smartphone in the world right now is still paying Nokia. Every iPhone, every Samsung, every Android, they all use technology Nokia invented, which means Nokia is still quietly making over $1.5 billion every single year. This is the story of how Nokia built an empire, lost it overnight, and somehow came back to dominate the future. Nokia's story begins in 1865 in an industrial town in southwestern Finland. A man named Fredrik Idestam, who had just graduated as a mining engineer, was looking for a new business opportunity, and so he opened up a paper mill on a riverbank deep in the Finnish forests. A few years later, he opened a second mill in a nearby town called Nokia, and that's where the company got its name. For the next 100 years, Nokia wasn't really anything special. They made paper, cardboard, tissue, just regular boring stuff. Eventually they got into rubber boots, car tires, electrical cables, and even gas masks for the Finnish army during World War II. Basically, if it was something practical, Nokia probably made it. But by the 1960s, inside one of Nokia's businesses, the cable division, there was a small team of engineers working on something brand new: radio technology. Most Nokia executives thought it was a waste of resources, just a tiny side project. But by the 1990s, Nokia's leaders had to make one of the biggest decisions in the company's history. Should they keep doing the boring stuff that had worked for over 100 years, or bet everything on this new technology called mobile communications? In a move that shocked everyone, they chose mobile, selling off the paper, the rubber, the cables, almost everything. It was a massive gamble, and if it didn't work, the company would be dead. But as it turned out, it would be the best decision Nokia ever made. In 1987, Nokia released their first real mobile phone, called the Mobira Cityman. By today's standards, it was insane, weighing nearly 2 pounds and costing around $5,000 in today's money. Most people who saw it thought it was a joke. Nobody was going to walk around with a brick to make phone calls. But Nokia kept improving it, making it smaller and lighter every year. And then, in October of 1989, Nokia executives pulled off one of the smartest marketing moves in business history. A Nokia executive named Stefan Widomski handed his personal Mobira Cityman to the most powerful man in the Soviet Union. That man was Mikhail Gorbachev, right there in front of the press. Gorbachev used the phone to call his deputy communications minister, all the way back in Moscow. The photo of Gorbachev with the Nokia phone showed up on newspapers all over the world. The Mobira Cityman got a new nickname. People started calling it the Gorba. And suddenly, everyone wanted a Nokia. Over the next 10 years, Nokia released phone after phone, each one smaller, cheaper, and better than the last. In 1992, they released the world's first mass-produced GSM phone. By 1998, Nokia had passed Motorola to become the biggest phone maker on Earth. And then, in the year 2000, they released the phone that would become a legend. The Nokia 3310. It was cheap, the battery lasted nearly a week, and it was so durable that people joked it could survive a nuclear bomb. It also came with a tiny pre-installed game called Snake, which became one of the first mobile games to go truly global. The Nokia 3310 sold over 126 million units, making it one of the best-selling phones ever made. By 2007, Nokia was at the top of the world. They had factories in 9 countries, 130,000 employees, and nearly half of every phone sold on Earth was a Nokia. In Finland, Nokia was a source of enormous national pride, responsible for a huge part of the country's economic growth. Nothing could stop them, or so they thought. Because on January 9th, 2007, a man walked onto a stage in San Francisco and quietly destroyed everything Nokia had built.
Today, Apple is going to reinvent the phone.
That was Steve Jobs on January 9th, 2007, introducing the very first iPhone. Now, you'd think Nokia would have been pretty worried about this, but when the executives at Nokia first saw the iPhone, they actually laughed. To them, the iPhone looked like a toy, too expensive, bad battery, only one carrier, and worst of all in their opinion, no physical keyboard. Plus, Nokia was selling more than 400 million phones a year. Apple had never even made a phone before, so the idea that they could threaten Nokia seemed absurd. But here's the thing, the world didn't know at the time. Nokia's own engineers had actually built a touch-screen smartphone, years before the iPhone even came out. In 2004, Nokia even had designs for an online app store, 3 years before Apple launched theirs. Years later, Nokia's former chief designer Frank Nuovo would say, quote, "Oh my God, we had it completely nailed." But every single time their engineers tried to push these ideas forward, Nokia's management shut them down. One Nokia manager named Juhani Risku later compared the company's internal culture to a Soviet-style bureaucracy. He said his team submitted over 500 ideas to fix Nokia's outdated software, and not a single one got approved. The reason was actually pretty simple. Nokia was making way too much money doing things the old way. To launch a touchscreen smartphone would have meant cannibalizing their own best-selling phones, and no executive at Nokia wanted to take that risk. So while Nokia kept selling the past, Apple kept improving the iPhone over and over again. And then, in 2008, things got even worse for Nokia. Google launched a brand new operating system called Android, and they made it completely free for any phone maker to use. Almost every major phone maker on Earth started using Android, except Nokia, because Nokia had their own operating system that they refused to give up. It was called Symbian. Now, Symbian wasn't a bad system back in the day, but it was old and clunky. Developers hated building for it. Users hated using it. And even Nokia's own employees admitted it was outdated. But Nokia had spent years and billions of dollars on Symbian. So instead of switching to Android, they doubled down. By 2010, the iPhone had over 300,000 apps. Android had around 200,000. And Symbian had almost nothing. Customers started abandoning Nokia. Developers stopped building for Symbian. And Nokia's sales started crashing. By 2010, Nokia's leaders knew they were in serious trouble, so they made a desperate decision. They hired an outsider to come in and save the company. In September 2010, Nokia announced their new CEO, a man named Stephen Elop. He was the very first non-Finnish CEO in Nokia's 145-year history. To convince him to take the job, Nokia paid him a $6 million signing bonus, plus a $1.4 million yearly salary. so he had no reason not to take the position. But there was something kind of strange about Stephen Elop's background. His previous job had been at Microsoft, where he had worked as the head of their business division. Just 5 months into his new job at Nokia, Stephen Elop did something no CEO had ever done before. On February 8th, 2011, he sent an internal memo to every single Nokia employee. The memo was over 1,300 words long, and within hours of being sent, it leaked online. It first showed up on a tech blog called Engadget, and from there, it spread to every major news outlet in the world. In the memo, Elop told a dramatic story. He described a man working on an oil platform in the middle of the ocean when the platform suddenly caught fire. The man had two choices: stay on the burning platform and die in the flames, or jump 30 meters into the freezing ocean and hope he survives. The man jumped, and Elop wrote, "Nokia is that man, and Nokia is standing on a burning platform." Now, the memo was supposed to be a wake-up call, but when it leaked to the public, it had the opposite effect. Customers panicked, investors panicked, Nokia's stock started crashing almost immediately. Then, just days later, Elop announced his big plan to save Nokia. Nokia would abandon Symbian, ignore Android, and partner exclusively with Microsoft's Windows Phone, the same Microsoft where Stephen Elop had worked just 1 year earlier. Almost immediately, people started raising eyebrows. A Google executive named Vic Gundotra tweeted, quote, "Two turkeys do not make an eagle," and the tweet went viral within hours. And this is where the conspiracy theory began. The theory goes like this: Microsoft had been desperately trying to break into the smartphone market for years. So what if they sent Stephen Elop into Nokia on purpose, as a corporate Trojan horse? Now, to be fair, Elop has always denied this, and 2 Finnish journalists wrote an entire book investigating the theory, but couldn't find any concrete proof. But what happened next made a lot of people wonder. In 2010, Nokia had 33% of the smartphone market. By 2013, they had just 3%. Their revenue crashed 40%. Their profits collapsed 95%. And their stock collapsed by 62%. And in September 2013, Nokia did something nobody thought they'd ever do. They sold their entire phone business to Microsoft for $7.2 billion. The biggest phone company in history was finished, and the man who orchestrated the entire deal, Stephen Elop, walked away with a $25 million bonus. And then almost immediately, he went right back to his old job at Microsoft. So was it just a coincidence? Was Elop just a normal CEO who made bad decisions? Or did Microsoft really plant him at Nokia on purpose? Honestly, we'll probably never know for sure, but you can make your own conclusions. So now Microsoft owned Nokia's phone business, and you'd think, with all of Microsoft's resources, they'd be able to turn things around, but they couldn't. Just 1 year after buying Nokia, Microsoft wrote off $7.6 billion. That's actually more money than they paid for Nokia in the first place. But the real damage was still to come. Microsoft also fired 18,000 Nokia employees. And this is where the story gets really sad. Take a Finnish town called Salo, for example. Nokia opened one of its very first factories in Salo, back in the 1970s. At its peak, Nokia employed around 5,000 people in that one town alone. But after Nokia sold to Microsoft, the layoffs in Salo just kept coming. And by 2015, the factory was completely closed. The town's unemployment rate jumped from 6% to over 15%. 6,000 jobs disappeared in Salo alone in just 5 years. One local woman who had lived there for 20 years told a reporter, quote, "It has never felt so bad living here." By 2017, Microsoft had given up completely. They killed the Nokia brand on phones, shut down the factories, wrote everything off, and walked away. So what did Microsoft actually buy for $7.2 billion? Basically, nothing. For millions of Nokia fans around the world, watching the brand just disappear felt like the end of an era. But here's the thing nobody realized at the time. Because while Microsoft thought they had bought Nokia, the actual Finnish company was still very much alive. And as it turned out, they had something Microsoft didn't even know they wanted. When Nokia sold their phone business to Microsoft, they didn't actually sell everything. They kept 3 specific things behind, and those 3 things ended up being more valuable than the phones ever were. The first thing they kept was their patents. Nokia had spent decades inventing the core technology that makes mobile phones work. Things like how phones connect to cell towers and handle calls. They had thousands of essential patents related to this stuff. And here's the crazy part. Every single smartphone in the world today still uses some of these patents, which means every time someone, anywhere in the world, buys a smartphone, Nokia gets a small royalty payment. That alone brings them over 1.5 billion euros every single year in almost pure profit. The second thing Nokia kept was their network business. While everyone was busy watching the phone wars between Apple and Samsung, Nokia quietly transformed itself into one of the biggest network equipment companies on Earth. Today, Nokia builds network infrastructure in over 130 countries. So when you get 5G signal on your phone, there's a very good chance it's running on Nokia equipment, even if your actual phone is an iPhone or a Samsung. Nokia's total revenue in 2024 was nearly 20 billion euros, with around 75,000 employees, and they're already working on the next generation of mobile technology, 6G networks for the 2030s. And the third thing Nokia kept was the brand name itself. In 2016, a group of former Nokia executives formed a brand new company called HMD Global, and they signed a deal with Nokia to license the Nokia name so they could put it on brand new phones. One of the first things they did was bring back the legend. In 2017, they relaunched the Nokia 3310. Same iconic design, but updated for the modern world, and it sold millions of units on pure nostalgia alone. So is Nokia still a phone company today? Not really. But are they still making billions of dollars? Absolutely. The thing Microsoft thought was just a leftover ghost of Nokia turned out to be the most valuable part of the company all along. Looking back, Nokia's story is really a lesson about what happens to companies that get too comfortable at the top. Nokia had everything they needed to beat Apple. Touchscreen prototypes, app store designs, brilliant engineers, factories, cash, everything. But they didn't want to risk replacing their own best-selling phones. So they waited, and while they waited, the world moved on without them. And maybe the most surprising part of this whole story is that Nokia didn't actually die, they just changed. The Nokia your parents had in their pocket is gone forever, but the Nokia that powers mobile networks all over the world is doing better than ever. Sometimes, the empire you build isn't the one that survives, but sometimes, what survives ends up being more valuable in ways you never expected. And that's the real story of Nokia. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe and leave a like. That's the best way to support the channel and help me make more videos like this. Thank you.